those that are new to the dialogue series, just want to give you a little context of like what we do and like why we do it. So the purpose of a community dialogue series is for people to come together to talk about things that we feel that matter, and those can be in two different methods. One is a space for healing and thoughtful reflection about high impact issues, or the other in educational space to contemplate something we might consider talking about if we don't typically do so in our everyday life. And so so with it being community dialogue series, just wanted to go ahead and like differentiate between different types of talks. The first being a debate. As hopefully everyone's well aware, we're definitely in an election season, and there have been copious amounts of debates already happening. So saying that, we don't want that type of format where when we transition to our dialogue portion, we're not trying to have someone win an argument or anything like that. We're just trying to share the space and share different perspectives. And then differentiating from debate to discussion, that's more so as you will see like in a class lecture, for example, with your professor being the one that has like majority of the knowledge and just trying to share that wealth of knowledge with his students. And then what we're aiming for after the educational piece is a dialogue where, as I mentioned earlier, we're all going to come in with our different experiences and perspectives and just sharing those viewpoints to like try to reach an understanding or just try to see where each other is coming from for like a better understanding of what we will be discussing later on today. As you see on your table, there are just some community expectations. I'll give you a second to just go over those and just make sure that you we're like how we would like this space, or the space, how we would like this space to be. Cool. Hopefully everyone had a chance to read over those and are willing to abide by those. And just wanted to shed some light on some of the agreements that's on there. The share the air and the step back or step up, step back. That's just more so for everyone to have a chance to share their points in our dialogue. We don't want this one person, dominating the conversation. With this being a community dialogue, we want everyone to have that opportunity to share their viewpoints and perspectives. Just some house rules real quick. As I mentioned earlier, we have food in the bag. If you haven't had a chance to get any food, please do that now. And then also restrooms. When you leave out these doors, they're right here on the right. If you need to use the restroom at any point during the educational content piece. Before I introduce further introduce our speaker, are there any questions about anything I covered so far? Cool. So as I mentioned, the Community Dialogue Series is a two-part session where what we're about to engage in now is the educational portion, and then later on after our speakers, we'll transition next door to the dialogue portion, which is right next door, and we'll have people facilitating that motion. So now to introduce our speakers, first up is Diop Kamau. He is a former police sergeant detective with the Hawthorne, California Police Department, who served to go undercover and expose the brutality of some police officers after his 65-year-old father, a sheriff's deputy, was pulled over and brutalized by police in 1988, with police claiming that they had mistaken him for a 25-year-old robbery suspect. His undercover investigations caught the attention of the media quickly, landing the story on NBC's Today Show, CBS 60 Minutes, Dateline NBC, ABC's 2020, CNN, and numerous other local news outlets. Today, Kamau and his organization work to address instances of police misconduct via the Police Abuse TV app and website. Also joining him is Tyra Ferrell. She is an acclaimed actress on the stage and screen. She has been praised for her exemplary performances in Boys in the Hood, Jungle Fever, White Men Can't Jump, Poetic Justice, ER, The Mighty Quinn, The Coroner, and more. Her most recent performance is playing a tenacious DA / prosecutor in the hit show Empire. Tyra Ferrell's extensive and diverse performances are a compliment to her dedicated background as an artist. I would like to welcome you, or ask y'all to join in and welcome our speakers.
Okay, so thank you. I want to thank Steve Mills and Daryl for setting this up. I also want to thank George Cartwright, who's helping me with some technical stuff for our presentation. And I want to start with how I was brought into this program. Steve Mills is an old friend. Our daughters both went to the same school, and we began talking about this actually about a year, maybe a year and a half ago, and it keeps coming up. My work takes me all around the country, and you don't see me on television shows because I'm not the one doing the talking. I'm the one doing the work. There are others out there like me who are out there in the trenches, and you may not see them, but the folks you see on TV are often talking without a whole lot of information. We were asked to discuss the Colin Kaepernick role in this police issue and how people perceive it. Is it patriotic? Is there something wrong with what he's doing? Is he grandstanding? People are questioning his athletic ability. Is he doing this just to get a job, or he's not satisfied with being the first or second string quarterback, so he wants to cause trouble? You can reduce everything he's saying down to rubble because he doesn't have any data or any empirical evidence to show you. So you can evaluate on your own, and that's what most people do. They assess police abuse by their own experiences. I've never had a bad problem with the cops, so what's the problem? I'm about to show you what the problem is. The problem is much larger in dimension. It's much more like an iceberg than it is anything else. You only see the tip that's above water. The Rodney King incidents, the Trayvon Martin sorts of things, the big media events where you see a clear level of injustice are the least frequent event, and that's what the press focuses on. And I'm not criticizing the press because the press plays a critical role in solving this problem. But you also need to know that the press role is a problem because the press are influenced by local police politics. So if you have a journalism unit in any news media organization, and they begin to criticize the police, they will start losing stories. So they have to constantly weigh and assess, is this a story I want to take? Is this a story I want to do? Well, what's the result for the rest of you? You are silenced. If you do get beat up, where do you go? Try to get through, if you have a serious injury or incident with the police, to any major media outlet. You will be lucky. You'd be better to just throw it up on YouTube and take your chances there. Somebody might pick it up. But generally speaking, the dimensions of the problem are hidden because we haven't thoroughly investigated it properly. When I went to graduate school at Penn State, I was told about these leaders in policing who I needed to study. And I was told that they had done this enormous work, basically demonstrating that there wasn't a lot of police abuse. So I asked them about the studies, and there's others I'm going to talk about in a minute, but these were called observational research studies. They were done by Donald Black and Albert Rees, two famous criminologists who were doing studies. And the way that they constructed the studies will tell you how they got the results that skewed the issue for many, many years. Essentially, they would put what they call a trained observer, likely a graduate student, in the car with a police officer. They would drive around for several hours, and among the many things that they documented, they rarely documented any police abuse. Well, why is that? The police officer's not going to beat someone up in front of a so-called trained observer who he doesn't likely know, and then go right back to doing his job, so it's hidden. So I started questioning these studies as being seriously flawed, but let's talk about the studies where they did say there's a problem. There's the Kerner Commission, which looked at riots across the U.S. If you go back over the last 100 years and you look at every major riot in an African-American community, most involve the police at some level, either in provoking it, sustained harassment of the community, doing other things. So they've had all these studies, and what have they come up with? Well, the Kerner Commission said that the police were at the heart of the problem. The Knapp Commission said that the police were corrupt. The Christopher Commission said that the police beat people and destroyed evidence. The Colts Commission said that the police interfered with people who were trying to file complaints. And now we have new studies. We're studying, again, Ferguson. We're studying, again, things that are happening that I'm going back 20 years, and I'm going to take you back 20 years. I was a police officer in 1987 when my father was pulled over with my younger sister and 4 kids in the car. I was a sergeant at the time. I was rising up through the ranks, and on a night, my older sister had twins. My father drove out to her house with my younger sister and 4 toddlers in the car. They were pulled over in Pomona, California. He was ordered out of the car at gunpoint. He had his hands up. He had a very, very serious medical condition. He had a kidney apparatus he was wearing, and he was in pretty bad health. He actually died a few years afterwards, but in any event, he was hoisted up off the air, slammed to the ground, and savagely beaten. And the police kept beating him until his police ID fell out of his back pocket at some point during the incident. They didn't know he was a cop. And he was a long-serving cop, distinguished, and he had never had any issues. But here he was in the middle of an incident with his grandchildren looking at him with guns pointed at everyone in the car. They put a shotgun to my sister's head while she's holding an infant. So, who am I? I'm a second-generation police abuse victim. I'm still carrying that around in my head. Do you think I don't talk to my daughter about it? Do you think I don't talk to all my relatives about it? So, what you see is a tip of the iceberg. You see the Rodney King incident. You see the Michael Brown incident. But you don't see me because I don't have any obvious wounds. I'm just pissed off. I'm just an angry black man. And so when you evaluate whether Colin Kaepernick's stand is legitimate, you evaluate it from your own perspective. You're not angry. You're not an angry black man. Well, I've spent 25 years traveling around the country impersonating a black man. What does that mean? That means I put on a baseball hat and turn it sideways, and I will get pulled over. That means I wear a Pendleton shirt, and I will get arrested, as I did in 1988, for walking through Westwood Village. That means if I rent a 76 Chevy and I drive it, or 66 Chevy and I drive it through a neighborhood, I will get pulled over, and I have been pulled over. I've been arrested 4 times. My staff have been arrested another 4 times. That's 8 arrests. You want to know what the arrests were for? Walking into a police station and asking for a complaint form, or just driving and being black. It's not, when you hear people talking about driving while black, they're not making that up. That's a fact. You're walking around as a target 24 hours a day. And it's not the kind of target that, well, somebody's going to say a harsh word to you, because racism has largely been driven underground. So you have institutions that are acting with a certain perspective, with a certain will, with a certain orientation when they run into people. So if the police are going to humiliate me, you don't have to call me the N-word. The police will do it for you by their differential treatment, by the harassment that they engage in, and by their failure to even address the misconduct when it's obvious. I have some invisible people I want you to see. I'll ask you to turn the lights down in a minute. This is Salisa Luster. This is Jules Friday. This is Janice Wells. And the reason I want to start the program talking about them is because they're invisible to the general public. But they have various dimensions of problems resulting from their encounter with the police. Jules Friday, and these are all on the front page of our website, so you can play them during your discussion and later and hear their comments about how they were individually treated. But I'm going to summarize essentially what happened to them. I'll start with Janice Wells. In fact, I think I would rather play her because you have to see this to believe it, and I don't think you'll be able to believe it when I tell you the story behind it.
And I said, well, he got the gun, he might keep the door down, or anything could happen. So I said, well, I better get my purse.
Can you turn that through?
I got my purse. I said, sir, I would go. Then he started pulling on me.
Did he place you under arrest at that time?
No, he started pulling on me.
Okay.
And I said, sir, I'm not going anywhere. And so he said, yes, you are. Because you're going to tell me who that was. And I don't know why he was so persistent on knowing who that was, because, see, that wasn't even important.
All right, I want to tell you what's going on here with Janice Wells. Janice Wells called the police to report a burglary of her home. Within 20 minutes of the officers arriving, she was beaten and tasered and arrested. And what she's explaining right now is how this incident started in terms of the police officer's orientation when he got there. He's there to investigate a burglary. She is the victim. But what the officer wants to know is, who is her male friend who's with her? Why is he there? She told the officer that that's none of your business, which was a fatal mistake on her part. If you tell an officer I'm not talking to you, if you tell an officer I'm not giving you my ID, if you tell an officer that I have a right to remain silent, you might get what she got.
Who that was. So when we went on around the side of the house, and I said, I'm not getting your car. Then he started pulling on me again. So I walked around the house, and he was steady walking and pushing before I realized that he had pepper sprayed me. That was when I ran. Then he ran after me. So I think he slipped.
Officer Murphy pepper sprayed Janice Wells in the face. Moments later, Murphy tackled Wells to the ground. A second officer, Ryan Smith, arrived as backup. Smith then tasered Janice Wells repeatedly. Wells was arrested and transported to the Richland, Georgia police station.
If you were Tim Murphy, what would you have done different?
Well, based on information from what I gathered, I didn't see any probable cause for him to try to arrest her.
Okay, so the guy you're looking at right now is the police chief. The officers have arrested her, tasered her, pepper sprayed her, and they don't have a crime. So when they get back to the police station, they're in a scramble. They don't even know what to charge her with. She's released 20 minutes later. So what do you do when you've been beaten down, tasered for no reason, when you're the victim of a crime and the police release you and you have no criminal charge? You get a lawyer, and then you get victimized the second time. The lawyer, Gary Parker, is a fraudster. I'll say that in public because it's true. Ms. Wells actually didn't contact me about the police abuse part of it. She contacted me because she couldn't find out what her lawyer was doing. And I want to give you another dimension of the problem that nobody is thinking about. Where do you think all these piled up victims of police abuse end up? You think they're at Ben Crump's office? You think they're in some, Johnny Cochran's not here anymore. And my wife and I frequently ask the question, where are the Johnny Cochrans? Because you can't find them. But there are a stream of ambulance chasers following the big cases, the money cases, where there's going to be a settlement. But nobody is taking cases like this. This woman is ruined. I talk to her and she cries on the phone. She's having panic attacks. She can barely breathe. She's been humiliated. But she got humiliated the second time worse by her lawyer. I went in on the federal court file case to see what this guy was doing. And he hadn't filed a single motion in a year. He had completely abandoned her case after taking all of her money, asking her to give him all of her tax records and other papers that had nothing to do with her case because he wanted to assess how much money she had. And then once he knew what her financial cap was and he drained her, he bailed out. So to cover his tracks, he told her, you're the problem. They tasered you because you're a fornicator. They tasered you because you've been having some relationship with a man, and that guy, and you know you did it. They tasered you because, wait, White people are upset with the election of President Obama, and I can't continue to go forward with your case because you won't win in court. I'm not making this up. I have the letters that he wrote. I got copies of them. He just made up some stuff because he thought this poor woman, uneducated, who she is educated, she's a school teacher, but not educated in his mind. He knew she had limited resources. He could tell her anything, and then he used a bunch of religious jargon because he knew she was a praying woman, so he even took advantage of that. I was so outraged by what he did that I took her I had one of my private investigators fly into Georgia, pick her up, and meet Gary Parker at his house.
Attorney Gary Parker advised Ms. Wells that white people are upset with the election of President Obama.
Is that the back door?
This is Gary Parker's home in Georgia.
I'm Mr. Miller. I'm a journalist with PolicePeace.com. I'm here with her.
Get that camera and get off my property.
Okay.
Get that camera and get the fuck off my property now.
Gary Parker
Yeah,
said he was
he's
a religious man, and he's a man to be respected. I don't know about that. I can give you more examples, but the reason I brought Janice Wells up is because her tragedy doesn't stop with the police event, and that's something that you need to consider when you think about this issue, that when these people get abused and they seek justice using all the means that they've been told are available, all the means that they're supposed to use, they're not using violent means, they're not burning down cars, they're not flipping cars over, they're going through the system and they're getting ground up into meatloaf. Let me give you my second case that I think is equally important. I'm picking 4 cases out of 100. I have cases worse than this. I have victims who are raped. I just talked to a rape victim this morning who was raped in her home by a police officer, and she's getting nowhere. Her name is Shalicia Montgomery. She also lives in Georgia. The officer made her give him oral sex in the bedroom of her home while he was investigating a crime. He wiped himself up, took the evidence with him, and it's her word against his. You ever heard that before? It's her word against his. The police came in and cleaned, and I could see by the kind of questions that they asked him that they were helping him along the way. So she's not getting anywhere. She's one of my hardest cases to prove because there's really no evidence other than her word, and I know that she wouldn't be doing what she's doing for 3 years if she was doing it for any other motive than it happened. Let me go to my next case, which is Jules Friday. He also presents a series of issues that I would like you to consider. Jules Friday is also a Florida case.
Why did the police let the canine
He was mauled.
dog loose on you? Can you tell?
He was mauled by 2 Coral Springs, Florida police canines. He had 80 puncture wounds when he met me at the Golden Eagle Country Club. The wounds, I'm a cop. I was gagging. He had pus coming out of the wounds because they hadn't been properly treated. Why was he mauled by 2 police dogs? He was mauled because he was walking across the street to get a pack of cigarettes from a friend. That's why he was mauled. The police had a really elaborate story. They said, there was a burglary in the area. We had no idea who he was. But why would you let the dogs keep biting him? The dogs bit him in his testicles. He'll tell you about it in just a moment. They bit him up and down his legs. They also tasered him several times. Like Janice Wells, that's 50,000 volts. How many of you can sit through that? And the other, there was some, this is the thing, the most important thing I can tell you as an investigator is you would think that these cases I'm bringing up are hard to prove. Like, there's no evidence that the police did anything wrong. No, there's evidence all over the place. Let me just tell you what the circumstances were so you get the context here. He's walking out of a house. He hasn't committed any crime. The police say we had a big burglary. That's not what they really had because I got all the police reports. What they actually had was someone was going along the street, banging on cars, and setting off the car alarms. That's all they had. They didn't have a suspect, they didn't have an actual burglary, there was no crime. It was just a bunch of car alarms going off. At 12 p.m. or midnight, Jules Friday walks right into it, and I'll let him tell you what happened.
Oh, yeah?
I think it's because they started saving me,
Mm-hmm.
and I was taking the pages out, and as I was taking the pages out, I kept putting my hands back in the air, so right across the street. But I guess they felt like that effect wasn't enough, so they let the dog do it.
And they allowed the dog to bite you under your genitals, correct?
When I went down voluntarily,
Okay. And did you offer any sort of resistance? Did you fight back? Did you try to do anything did you ever try to run away or flee?
I did not try to run away or flee.
Can you think of anything that you did that would give them reason to use force against you?
I can't think of anything at all.
Now, when they stopped you were right across the street from your house.
Yes, I was.
So they could have verified that you lived there and you had a reason to be there.
They could have, because when they stopped me, I put my hand in the air and I said, let me explain, my wallet's in my pocket, and I live right across the street, and I had my hand.
Okay.
If they wanted to, they could arrest me. Your hand in my pocket is on my ID.
Okay. You don't have to take your pants down, but show me the area where the dog bit you.
That would be right here.
Right there. Okay. And was the dog on a leash when he did that, or did they have him loose?
He wasn't on the leash at all.
Okay, I'm not going to play the end of this because I want to move the program along to the next video, but I do want to say this about Jules Friday. Uniquely, again, the assumption is he must have done something. He hasn't done. The police just don't do that. Oh, yes, they do. And let me tell you what's worse. When I contacted the Coral Springs Police Department demanding that they do an investigation, they pulled out the trick, the scenario, which is actually creating some of the most intense frustration in the community. They said, well, we can't look into this because you're accused of a crime. Meaning Jules Friday, he was charged with assault on 2 police dogs. He was charged with, and he was convicted. Or, excuse me, he took a plea. How did he take a plea? Because he doesn't have the money to fight it. So, the most notoriously overused and disbelieved term in the black community is I was framed. Everybody says it. All the inmates in jail say it. But guess what? About half of them have been framed. Even the ones who did something got framed with extra charges. The process is so broken that if a police officer assaults you, injures you, beats you up, they have an instant way out by flipping it over on you and making you the problem. You did something to deserve what I did to you, even if it's like Janice Wells, even if it's like Jules Friday. So let me talk a little bit about some of the work I've done, which I've done about 500 investigations nationally, undercover, with hidden cameras. Well, I've worked with media, and I've done about another 5,000 on my own, just going out, testing police departments all over the country. And I'm going to show you some of my results in just a moment. But I have one more case I want to show you before I do that, and that is the case of Celisa Lester. And I talked to her mother this morning, and I told her I was going to bring this up, and I asked her if it was okay to talk about her case, because her case is really different. It's as tragic as Jules Friday and Janice Wells, but much more serious. And it is actually at the heart of my presentation. The assumption about police abuse is that it's all aggression, that the cops are kicking and beating and stomping, but you can do just as much damage by omission, by not doing your job, by not listening and by not caring and by not being a human. I have a photograph of an officer, Rick Ward. I'm not going to put it on the screen, but I don't know anybody like this person. When you hear what he did, if you're not outraged, there's something wrong with you. But at the heart of what people like Colin Kaepernick are trying to say and express to you is he's trying to tell you that that pain is real, that that pain is mobile, and that that pain is transitional, that it's moving from one generation to the next generation. And the fuel for that anger is not good for any of us. I'm an angry black man, but I learned how to channel my anger. I got a nice, beautiful wife. I got things that make me kind of calm down. But I'm as angry. We had a hacking incident. That's my webmaster calling. So, don't worry about it. The types of things that the police are actually getting away with are not just about using the batons and tasers and police dogs improperly. They're about neglect. There's a couple of organizations. There's one called the 490 Challenge, and there's several other groups that have mobilized about a particular issue that affected Celisa Luster. Her case is different. Celisa Luster was raped over 3 days. She was beaten, tortured. This guy did stuff to her I won't even bring up in this public meeting because I know the entirety of the case. What he did to her, I wouldn't do to an animal. And a police officer arrived on the scene, checked it all out, and then locked her back in the room with the suspect and made everybody leave.
The officer, as far as you know, either from your own observations or your mom's, make any effort to collect evidence?
No.
Did he suggest or offer you a rape kit?
No.
Did anyone offer you that sort of treatment in terms of examining you to see if you've been harmed?
If it happened once I got to the hospital, but nothing from the police.
And you told me in a pre-interview that there was a day when she didn't report for work,
Yeah.
and you were concerned.
Yeah.
All right. Now, was she absent more than one day, or just one day?
She was absent 2 days total.
And then the second day you took action?
Yeah. First thing we did was we went to the door and knocked on the door to see if we could get her to come to the door and open it up.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no response.
Okay, did you knock loud, hard to make sure?
And on the windows.
Okay. So you were banging the doors and on the windows, and no one answered?
Right.
Okay, did you also call her on the phone?
We did, no answer.
And when you got to the apartment, did someone greet you, aside from the fact you knocked on the door? Did anyone come out and say, hey, what's...
No.
Okay, so you saw no one,
Right.
and you kept banging on the door?
Yes.
All right. What did you do next?
We called the police, yes. Everyone that was there was adamant about something wasn't right.
Okay. And what did the officer say?
Well, he went into to the apartment and shut the door, wouldn't let us in.
He actually went inside?
He did go inside.
Okay. And did he say what he found?
He came back out less than, I would say, no more than 5 minutes later, and said that she had a fight with her boyfriend and that she was upset and that we couldn't go in.
Did he give you an opportunity to go check for yourself?
No. He shut the door and said we couldn't go in. He could not let us in.
Did anyone question him or ask him?
Yes. Well, at that point out, we all became, a little frustrated and angry that, well, we haven't seen her. How do we know that she's okay? How do we know that that's her in there? We don't have any confirmation at that point.
And what did he say?
He said there's nothing he can do and that he just got in his car and left.
The officer would have seen her laying where?
On the couch.
With blood on her shirt.
Yes.
Eyes swollen shut, blood in her eyes, unable to talk because her tongue was so swollen, unable to move.
Mm-hmm.
And based on that, he said that she was just upset and had a spat with her boyfriend.
Yeah.
That's what he told you in his own words.
Yes.
And he offered no assistance.
No.
And he didn't look back when he left.
He was actually upset that we were asking him to let us in.
To do his job.
Yes, sir.
All I know is that they took me to the hospital. They said that I had been hit over the head quite a few times and the bruising on my eye and that I got raped. And at one point they didn't even know I was going to even survive.
Now, these photographs were taken on the day that she was admitted to the hospital. If you walked into an apartment and saw someone looking like this, who couldn't talk because they had been choked, who had blood all over their shirt, and they're laying in the bed or on a couch pointing at a total stranger who doesn't belong in her apartment, and the cop didn't even ask him for ID, didn't take a report, and he didn't get fired afterward either. They made sure he got a retirement. He's as comfortable as hell living in Kentucky right now. Not a worry in the world. That was in 2009. I'm still investigating this case, and I just got it reopened. That is what Colin Kaepernick is talking about. That's what the public doesn't see. That's why people are flipping cars over. And you know what, I'm going to digress for a minute. I have two other cases I wasn't even going to talk about, but I can't not do it. They're close to Tallahassee. How many of you know where Holmes County is? It's less than an hour from here. I have an inmate named Dale Clax who was being raped over and over and over again in the jail because he was accused of being a child molester. Whether he was or he wasn't, he didn't go to jail to get raped, but that's what was happening to him. But you're not going to believe who was supervising the rape. Sergeant Joel Patrick was bringing the inmates in, supervising the rape, and standing over it less than an hour from Florida State University while all of you were attending class. This animal is in a public facility with supervisor capacity, supervising inmates as they're assaulting another inmate. I had him arrested. Why? Because I'm some special guy? No, because I got a big mouth. And I'm angry like Colin Kaepernick. And when his mother called me driving down I-10 crying on the phone, when she told me the story, I couldn't believe it. And when she gave me more facts, I had to call. So I got through the chain of command because I know how to talk to cops. I'm not afraid of cops. And I demanded that somebody go in there, find him. And I said, if you don't, I'm recording this call and it's going to be on the front page of policenews.com in the morning. So get your ass in there. Excuse my language. And they did. And when they went in there, what did they find? They found Supervisor Patrick with the boys. Daniel Linsenbigger, another one of my clients, Clay County Jail, less than 2 hours from here. Murdered in the Clay County Jail. Not one officer tried, convicted, even disciplined. Daniel Linsenbigger was suffocated to death. They put him in, he was complaining. They wanted to shut him up. They pepper sprayed him with mace. They soaked it, and then they put him in restraints so he choked to death. He was gasping on his. They had put a plastic bag over his head, and he suffocated. Yeah, they got $1 million settlement. That's not bringing their son back. And they mocked his mother because she had a drug addiction. They said, your boy was a drug addict, so what's your problem with us? This is Florida law enforcement. But, you know, I believe that a picture's worth 1,000 words and video is worth 1,000,000. So I'm going to show you some video. I'm going to actually show you a few of my investigations so that we can close this with some finale in terms of you understanding the problem in an informed way. Because I don't think I could, what you're about to see, I couldn't tell you, you wouldn't understand it. So this is me in 1989, driving through Long Beach, California. And why am I in Long Beach? Because Long Beach likes to pull over black people and arrest them. So I took a news crew from the Today Show, and I told them that I will not be able to drive through Long Beach on Pacific Coast Highway from one end to the other. I will get stopped. Well, they got in the car behind me in a van, and within a few minutes, the police were to pull up alongside me in a car. And everybody wanted to know, how'd you get them to stop? Well, first I didn't have to do anything. But the thing I know that was a real trigger is I turned and I looked the officer in the face. And when I looked him in the face, that was a nonverbal cue that had to be addressed. So they were going to pull us over. So they followed us, and you'll see, pick it up here where they start following me. And you can see what happens next. I'm in the car on the left, the police are in the car on the right. And the reasons the officers are following me is they're waiting for me to commit a traffic violation that they can then use to justify the stop. But I'm actually talking to the driver right now, telling him, keep driving straight, don't change lanes, speed limit is 35, keep it low, and we're in a 76 Buick. Now I'm going to get out of the car and step to the curb because we have a camera mounted in the rear view window. And the issue is not to get the officer to beat me up. The issue is to raise what happens most frequently someone gets in a verbal confrontation with a cop, that person then says, okay, I give up, and then the cop follows through with some additional action that shouldn't happen. And that's what happens here. That's me about 40 pounds ago.
I'm fucking telling you, that's why. What are you talking about, man? You want to write a ticket, don't mess with me, man. Listen, I got the right to bet you down, I'm gonna fucking do that. Yeah? If you got a knife or weapon on you, pat me down, but don't turn around and put your fucking hands on your head now. Why? Do it now, because I'm fucking telling you to. What are you gonna do? Put your fucking hands on your head! You hit me with that stick? Yeah, I just might. For what? Put your hands on your head. For what? I don't know if you got a fucking knife! Yeah, I don't have a knife. Put your fucking hands on your head, turn around! Nothing, man, nothing. Nothing, man. I'm alright, okay? No problem. Get the fucking driver out.
79 Triumph, Emily, Molesky,
Okay, I'm going to show some more if you can move the lights down for a minute. Let me just say this about where we are in this incident. Ultimately, I was charged with assault on a police officer resisting arrest, and it would have stuck if there wasn't video. He charged me, they prosecuted me, and they ultimately had to drop the charges. But now I'm going to take you on a short tour around the country, and then I'm going to close and let my wife finish with her comments. This is one incident, but I've tested Texas.
Chief or deputy chief? Chief or deputy chief?
At these police stations, there were no prying questions, just helpful information.
You can mail it in, you can bring it in. I mean, I can talk about it, and would you sit down and write it out right now? I mean, however.
Okay, actually, I got to wrap because I'm running short on time. What you're looking at briefly to tell you what follows in this video are a string of videos across the country where we went in to request information from police departments and were denied a complaint form or arrested or threatened. And the basic result of the studies that we did is that you have approximately a 50% failure rate when someone comes in expecting to get information, a complaint form, or help. If they communicate with a police officer, they're not going to get what they're asking for. I do have some additional comments, but I'd like my wife to come up and talk a little bit about our work and what we're doing.
Really quickly. Thank you so much for having me. I just want to tell you, because he won't talk about himself, but I love him to death, and I just want to say that policeabuse.com has been in existence we've been married 24 years now. But my husband we created policeabuse.com so that we could help people file complaints without having to go into the police department and get beat down. What he was about to show you, he went across the country. It was a 2-hour Dateline special going across the country, every state, to go in and file a complaint. Why was he doing that? Because some of you are so young you don't even know. I mean, you 24 years ago, some of you are younger, but what happened was Uema, a man in New York, had filed a complaint against a police officer. And when he went into the police department, they took him in the bathroom and they used a plunger and they beat him and they raped him with a plunger. What happened, my husband used to go undercover before everyone had a cell phone, and he was undercover as a black man, and every time, as you could see, that's what happened to him. So what I told him, I said, babe, get off the street, once we got married. I said, I got your back, get off the street, because they're going to continue to beat us. With this Uema guy, it's time for us to walk into the police department and see if we can file a complaint, because they don't like it when you file a complaint against one of their own. So then he said, great idea, babe. Also, I made him get a big camera with a big light on it, because he was using, when he was on the street, he was using a little bit of silver camera, high tech. They could confuse that as a gun. So at the time, I'm a big actress. I make a lot of money. I bought him a big camera so that they couldn't have any excuse to shoot him, right? So once that happened, thank you very much. We don't have much time, I'm keep moving. So what happened, I said, let's go into the police department. He rigged a camera here, he rigged a camera in his fanny pack, he rigged a camera in his cap, and he went in with his guys. He sent his volunteers in, he sat in the car with a monitor watching this whole scene. And then when this guy, he doesn't have time to show you, but go to our webpage, policeabuse.com, see all the videos. We have 100 of them. So what happened, and I want to tell you this, every time you see a Ferguson, every time you see a Zimmerman, guess what? We take a break because everybody's up in a roar. So we get, for every one, we get 9. I can tell you a little 16-year-old had his eye socket knocked out. The mother called in, I answered the phone, I got her to my husband. We got lawyers on it. It took years, because you know, if you get in court, it takes years. But guess what? He just now got a settlement because of my husband's work, because of what we did to help. Now back to the police station. So once we did that, Dateline did a 2-hour special, and out of 90, what percentage? Out of 98% of the time, they wouldn't file a complaint. They threaten you, they beat you. But what we do is we tell their stories. We post them on our website. I will also tell you this. We have many victories because of his expert witness reports that he does for people. People who come to us, the majority of people who come to policeabuse.com 24 years ago were European Americans. European Americans. Why? Because African Americans didn't have access to computers. So then they were the ones who were outraged. They couldn't believe, because the cops, they have testosterone, they don't care. You see what happens. It's just not a black thing. It's not. They don't like women. They have a hard time. Don't question their authority. Oh my God. So anyway, here we are. So what we've done since then, we decided to tell their stories on the webpage. And stay with me, honey, don't let me get lost. We gotta wrap it up. All I want to say is we've won a lot of cases where cases have been dismissed, clients have been acquitted, police chiefs have been fired, police officers have been fired. We've done an incredible job, but we're the best kept secret. Policeabuse.com has been doing a lot of work. So what happened to my husband, I said, babe, when people would call in, I would ask people, do you have access to a computer? I'm wrapping it up. They would say, no, but I have my phone. And I go, your phone? Because I'm not techno. I hate emails. I hate all of the computer. I'm a physical woman. So what I said was, babe, we need to do something. People don't have computers, but they have a phone. He says, oh, what should we do? I said, I don't know. He said, let's create an app. So we created an app. We created an app so that you can, on your phone, hit it, send us your complaint. So if the cops take your phone, they can't destroy it because it comes to us. You have video, you can send it to us. That way, in the privacy of your home, you can send a complaint. And when we send a complaint, they take it seriously. Because they go on policeabuse.com and they see, oh my God, this is serious. We don't want to be on there. So we've had a lot of victories, people, and we will continue to have victories. And I just want to say, when I found my husband, I felt so complete, because I got in the business because I didn't see myself represented as an actress, right? So now, when I did the work that I did, I met him, and I feel like his work is far more important than me shaking hands and signing autographs. I'm in it for you. We're in it for you. And the thing I want to say is, I'm going back to Hollywood. And going back to Hollywood, these are the stories I want to tell. Too many people are dying in the streets. And I want to thank you for your time.
Yes, so as I mentioned earlier, great thanks to our speakers, wonderful job. But now we will be transitioning next door to 2201 and 2202 to engage in our